Welcome to Fantasy Audiobook. My wife is Captain Marvel. Chapter 86. The Fifth DC Hero. Mara. Host. Unlock a new DC hero. Please extract or summon as soon as possible. Looked at the line of text that appeared on Batman's phone. A smile appeared at the corner of Li Wei's mouth. Come out, my queen of the sea. Wow. A huge amounts of water polo formed instantly in front of Li Wei. Then, plop. The huge amounts of water polo suddenly broke open, and a figure slowly walked out of it. The posture is wonderful and light, walking swaying and swaying, looking like an elf. This definitely is the figure of a woman. She has an incomparably graceful body, with an extremely perfect body, which is not too panicked compared to Diana. She wore a layer of green tights on her body, setting off her exquisite figure that was so hot and exquisite, just like the goddess, 51-0, who does not belong to the world. And that layer of tights, the material of the clothes looks very unique, covered with small scales, and there are countless golden ornaments. Step, step, step. She walked slowly towards Li Wei, her fiery red hair swaying constantly, with a crown made of gold and sapphire on her head. This crown embodies both wealth and strength. The three-dimensional facial features and the beautiful face are truly beautiful and indispensable. This kind of beauty can warm the years and make the time amazing. This is a combination of seductiveness and purity, a symbiosis of angel and the devil. Between a frown and a smile, it was breathtaking. You called me. The girl in front of her suddenly spoke and stared at Li Wei curiously. Li Wei nodded. Yes, Mara. The person who appeared in front of Li Wei was the famous sea queen in the DC universe, Mara. She is a heroine with the same fame as Wonder Woman Diana, but not a vase. With the supreme water magic, she has absolutely powerful control over the water element. It can be said that as long as there is water, she, the Sea Queen Mara, is almost invincible. She can control the shape, density and hardness of water, and in order to adapt to the life on the seabed, she has super strength that does not match her appearance. When angry, Mara can directly draw out the water in the human body and cause severe water shortage and coma. Therefore, she is definitely not as weak as she looks. Anyone who underestimates her will not end well. Wow. When the water ball dissipated, Mara's smart eyes couldn't help but move a few times. She opened her eyes wide, revealing a pair of bright sapphire eyes. She just stared at Li Wei like that, without sending a single glance. And Li Wei, under Mara's gaze, also looked at her stubbornly. The two people looked at each other for 10 seconds. The power of the ocean. Mara frowned and said, You are the son of Queen Atlantis, Arthur. Mara's soft voice sounded, breaking the deadlock. Do not. Li Wei just about to explain. Mara's beautiful Daisy's nose suddenly sucked, and the soft voice sounded again. Oh, no, you are not him, you are not the son of Queen Atlantis. I definitely am not. Li Wei smiled faintly, almost determined that the Mara summoned in front of him, like Wonder Woman Diana, had just stepped out of the world. He hadn't even seen the Aquaman Arthur before. What about you? Mara walked up to Li Wei curiously, looked him up and down, and then suddenly reacted. Hey. God. Is it possible? Is he dead? He adopted all the power of the ocean to you. Under Mara's extremely surprised and puzzled expression, Li Wei couldn't help but shrugged. He didn't deny it, nor nodded. It seems that it was because he extracted the power of Aquaman Arthur, so Mara decided that the Aquaman of the DC universe was dead. And he is now considered to have inherited his power. This setting is good. Li Wei grinned, then looked at Mara and said, You can think so. So, what should I call you? Mara blinked some innocent big eyes and looked at Li Wei. She felt a particularly close feeling, and also a kind of reliability. It's like her father, let her trust zero. You can call me Roar the boss. Li Wei walked to her side, poured a glass of red wine, and handed it to her. This is for drink. Ring. Mara took the glass of wine and drank it straight away. After drinking, he squeezed his mouth. It's so terrible, it tastes good without sea water. Handing wine is definitely a wrong act. Seeing Li Wei's face a little embarrassed, Mara suddenly smiled. Well, boss, I can call you boss, then can you tell me your real name? Li Wei. Li Wei opened her hand, but Mara lightly tapped her chin, and then said, Then, are you interested in conquering the ocean now? Li Wei couldn't help but was taken aback. The original soothing atmosphere was directly made a little nervous by Mara's words. What's the situation? Conquer the ocean. Li Wei was drawn to this sudden suggestion, and he felt a little emotional. I just came back from the ocean. Yes, conquer the ocean. The current ocean is completely different from the ocean you knew before, sir. Mara's words made Li Wei's heart move. He had doubts before, but after he summoned or extracted a hero, this Marvel world would change part of it. 1.2 It seems that what is changing now is the endless sea. No wonder even prehistoric creatures such as megalodons have appeared. Snapped. Mara suddenly picked up a bottle of wine from Li Wei's side, and then unscrewed the lid. Wow, she suddenly poured wine into the air. It is also Li Wei who knows Mara's ability, but if you change someone, you will definitely be shocked by this girl's sudden movement. Roar. The red wine was poured directly from the bottle by Mara. But the imaginary red wine sprinkled all over the ground, but did not find that all the red wine, under Mara's control, was suspended in the air. And as Mara's jade hand waved, those wines also began to change, changing into a map of the ocean. Mara's miraculous technique also stretched Li Wei's brows. Interesting. Li Wei stared at the red ocean map, which was changing rapidly. Faces of different faces appeared on it. Each of these faces occupies every aspect of the ocean territory, and Li Wei instantly understands that the owner of these faces seems to be the king of all races in this ocean area. Li Wei knows that in the ocean of DC, there are 7 seas, and they are the 7 tribes of Atlantis. The ocean of DC, that in Marvel have already integrated. In other words, the current ocean is the area after integration. Mara's hand also gave Li Wei a very clear understanding of Mara's strength. Water control ability is indeed very powerful, relying only on his wonderful control over this bottle of alcohol. One can imagine how terrifying it would be if he controls a bottle of water. The leaders of these tribes in front of them, any 08 small places on those faces, showed perfection. The ocean map is reduced completely in accordance with the scale. If it is converted according to a certain scale, it is not bad. Just as Li Wei secretly admired Mara's strength, Mara's light voice suddenly rang in his ears. Boss, the first thing that is different is the change of race. 8 races. 8th, the 7 tribes of DC, plus the original Marvel tribe. Nothing wrong. Li Wei nodded, and then Mara began to explain to Li Wei what the ocean in the Marvel world has become. It turned out that with the arrival of Aquaman Arthur's power, the whole Atlantis family followed. The reason? Perhaps Arthur is the owner of the Golden Trident. And the Golden Trident, it is the symbol of the entire Atlantis. It can be said that whoever owns the Golden Trident is the king of the Atlantis clan in the DC universe. Although Li Wei is now Aquaman, he does not have a Golden Trident. The ocean will not recognize it. Marine life is an exception. So the arrival of the Trident brought the whole Atlantis clan to the Marvel world along with it. And following that, there was another person, and that was Aquaman Arthur's younger brother Om. The fame and status of this AUM is actually comparable to that of Thor's younger brother Loki in the Marvel world. They have excellent combat effectiveness, dominance over the kingdom, and cohesion and control over the army. And they also have a common feature, that is, they like to find their brother, and they have crazy enthusiasm for the throne. After this AUM came to the Marvel world, he saw the current situation in the Marvel world and felt that the humans in the Marvel world were even more hateful. They disrespect the ocean even more than the humans in the DC universe, and the damage to the ocean is even greater. He also saw the Atlantis in the Marvel world. How weak is it? Therefore, AUM is determined now to integrate the 2 worlds of the DC universe Atlantis and the Marvel universe Atlantis, and merge the strongest power of the Atlantis clan. After that, several tribes were formed. This is the absolute master of the ocean today. It is so. It seems that I will not only inherit Aquaman's ability, but also his position. Li Wei suddenly understood why Mara would follow, which obviously complemented each other. The current overlord of the ocean, like the DC universe, is Aquaman Arthur's younger brother AUM. This guy has been waiting for an opportunity to attack the mainland, and now he is in the ocean, implementing his plan. And Mara, obviously does not want to see the ocean and the mainland meet each other. So as soon as she appeared, she couldn't wait to propose to Li Wei that he should conquer the ocean. Just like Aquaman's plot. Because he possesses the power of Aquaman Arthur, it means that Li Wei may obtain the Golden Trident and become the true king of the ocean. Thus became the Lord of the 7 Seas, 8 seas. If the boss can become the master of the 8 seas, there will be no war between the ocean continents and the world will be peaceful. Mara looked at Li Wei and said, how about, boss? Do you now have ideas about conquering the ocean and becoming the overlord of the ocean? Wow. After the introduction, Mara waved his palm, and all the wine entered the bottle without leaking, as if everything just now seemed to be a dream. And the bottle of red wine fell into Mara's hands all at once, and she put the bottle on the table again. Quite cool show operation. But Li Wei shook his head. Listen, Mara. Ocean, I will definitely conquer, but not now. Before this, I have more important things to do. Wakanda, this is the area that Li Wei is currently attacking most urgently. Although conquering the ocean sounds more brilliant, it takes a bite to eat and the road has to go step by step. Li Wei has absolute confidence in conquering the ocean, so he is not in a hurry. Okay, but can you give me an exact time? Mara stared at Li Wei. Li Wei thought for a moment, and then said, at most 1 month, 1 month later, I will take you back to the ocean. A word as definite, bright, 510. Mara stretched out her picture-perfect bifeng palm. A word as a deal. Snapped. Li Wei slapped her in the palm, and a smile appeared at the corner of Mara's mouth. In her opinion, this was Li Wei's assurance to her. In fact, she is not so worried about AUM launching an offensive on the mainland now. Because this guy has just come to build a foothold in this world now, and his foundation is not stable. Moreover, not all kings of other countries obeyed his orders, and not all Atlantis people wanted to wage war with the mainland. AUM still hasn't completely conquered the original Atlantis in this world. These are the problems facing the fellow AUM. It takes a lot of time and energy to solve all these things, so he has no time for duplication now. Attack on the mainland. Thinking too much. Li Wei has obtained this information from Mara. That's why he is not in a hurry. Early the next morning, there was a knock on the door of Li Wei Manor. Alfred had to go over and open the door. Butler, good morning. Nick Fury raised up the information in his hand. I am sending Wakanda information to the boss. Nick, come to my study. When Nick Fury arrives at Wayne Manor, Li Wei has already perceived it. Now his perception power, after being extracted by Aquaman, has reached an unbelievably abnormal level. If it is passive perception, it can radiate a range close to 1 kilometer, and if Li Wei actively diverges, it is estimated that within tens of kilometers is not a problem. Okay, boss. Nick quickly followed Alfred's footsteps and walked into Li Wei's study with the housekeeper. Li Wei was wearing a nightgown, sitting casually in the study, pointing to the seat in front of him and saying, sit down, Nick. Yes. After Nick Fury sat down, he handed a briefcase in his hand to Li Wei. Boss, there is all the information you want in it. There are also 2 small briefcases, one of which contains Wakanda's information. Nick Fury took out 2 file bags and shook them in front of Li Wei. There is another one, the file of the boss you want me to find, Ulysses Scraw. Speaking of this, Nick Fury suddenly raised his brows and smiled, then leaned forward, put his hand on his mouth, and said as if whispering, moreover, I have left a bit more thoughtful, and sent someone to stare at him. Live him. Quote. Li Wei glanced at Nick with interest, and suddenly smiled, good job. Yesterday Li Wei didn't tell him to stare at Ulysses Crow. Unexpectedly, Nick would be very involved, as expected to be the SHIELD director in the future, he is quite familiar with this kind of show operation. Then it's easy to grab him. However, I have to remind you. Li Wei suddenly said. This guy is an important person, and, quite crucial, he is also quite cunning. Don't stun the snake. This is definitely. Nick has a confident face. If this kind of trivial matter can't be handled well, those guys don't need to stay with us SHIELD. Well, you know it. To be honest, Li Wei is quite relieved about Nick's ability. After all, he is very ability. Correct. Nick suddenly lowered his voice. Boss, please forgive me for being unreasonable, and I would take the liberty to ask, Wakanda is a very mysterious country. I have never dealt with any other country. If I investigate them so suddenly, does the boss want to cooperate with them? A look of interest appeared on Nick's face. This guy is full of a strong thirst for knowledge about the unknown. Li Wei did not hide him. Nick, as the director of SHIELD, you must have a certain understanding of this Wakanda. Do you think this country is really a closed and backward agricultural country? Li Wei opened the briefcase and flipped through the information in it, while communicating with Nick. No, on the contrary. That's why I want to report to the boss. According to the intelligence obtained by our agent in every possible way. Nick Fury leaned against the chair. His expression suddenly became extremely serious. This Wakanda's technology is very advanced, and it can even be said to be quite advanced. Moreover, this country is extremely rich, and their science and technology have even exceeded and advanced. U.S. Speaking of this, Nick could not help but pause. Also, the country of Wakanda gives me a very strange feeling. What they showed, may be just the tip of the iceberg. At the end, Nick Fury sighed suddenly and rubbed his temples. Your intuition is not wrong. This country is indeed quite mysterious. That's why I became interested in them. Li Wei has read Wakanda's investigation documents, and they are basically consistent with what he knows, and even he knows more than the information. Obviously, what the original work reveals is all the secrets of Wakanda, and vibranium is all of them. Does the boss want to exchange science and technology with them and conduct transactions? Nick Fury pushed his hand forward and shrugged his shoulders. I don't believe that, boss, you are so boring. Moreover, according to the information I have received, these guys are quite difficult to contact, and even exclude outsiders, including me, like them. Race. They seem to be born to reject people outside the country. Nick said angrily. It was obvious that he suffered a dark loss in the hands of the Wakanda. Haha, I definitely won't be so boring. Li Wei put the materials on the table, lay back, leaning on his seat, and said, my hobby is to conquer them. The few words that Nick was about to say were abruptly swallowed by Li Wei after saying these words. Conquer them. Very confident words. And from his tone and actions, Nick can see that there are only 4 words that are reflected with confidence. Li Wei has strong confidence in conquering Wakanda. In that case, the strength behind him. Nick Fury couldn't help but took a breath, and then gave Li Wei a thumbs up directly. This guy's emotional intelligence and reaction are not unpleasant. Conquer them. This is really a good idea. As expected of the boss, really amazing. Nick, this guy desperately slapped Li Wei, flattering, but Li Wei waved his hand. There is one more thing. Li Wei thought a little bit. This time, you Shield don't have to intervene, I will deal with it myself. Okay. Nick Fury was a little relieved. You are the boss, what do you say? I definitely support it unconditionally. He was actually very happy to hear that Li Wei would not let Shield deal with Wakanda. He also read the information last night. If Li Wei wants to use Shield to deal with Wakanda, the shield that has just been established may be directly destroyed. This is obviously not what Nick wants to see. Well, your task at the moment, Shield, is to keep my eyes on this fellow Ulysses Scrawl. What's the matter? Report to me immediately. Maybe I will do something to this guy in 2 days. When talking about this, a glimmer of cold light flashed in Li Wei's eyes. Okay, boss, then I'm leaving. Nick Fury is doing things very fast. He stands up and wants to leave. But after walking a few steps, I suddenly thought of something, patted my head, and walked back. Why did I forget such an important thing? By the way, boss, I have one more thing to tell you. Mouth, what's the matter? Li Wei stared at Nick curiously, but Nick pointed out the door. Warrior, the guy you gave me. He has been treated, and now his mind has recovered, but he made a request. He wanted to see you. I brought him here without your consent. He has been waiting outside the manor in my car. Nick scratched his head in embarrassment, but Li Wei's brows couldn't help but a smile appeared on the corners of his mouth. Very well, there is no one to use Junkshow, this ready-made manpower is here. Sending Wonder Woman Quicksilver to deal with Ulysses Crow, to be honest, a little overkill. As for Black Widow Natasha Romanoff, I feel a little worried about going to Li Wei alone. If there was Winter Soldier's help, Ulysses' crew would definitely be there. After all, this guy has a mechanical arm, and ordinary super soldiers are not his opponents. This is the future Captain America. The Winter Soldier, with no level, how can it be so important? Go, take me to meet the Winter Soldier. Soon, Li Wei and Nick Fury came to the lobby on the first floor. Winter Soldier had already been led by Alfred to the living room. Open. Winter Soldier threw a military salute at Li Wei, bowed, looking respectful to Li Wei. Obviously, he already knew what happened from Nick's mouth. However, he still needs to confirm it in person. 510. Bucky, you don't need to be so polite. Bucky is the name of Winter Soldier, and Winter Soldier is just a code name for his superhero. Li Wei waved his hand, but Winter Soldier said solemnly, Sir, I know you destroyed Hydra, I just want to confirm it. Hey, I saw you, Hydra is now wiped out. Li Wei smiled. Winter Soldier also stood up straight, as if struggling in his heart. After a long time he said, Thank you. These 2 words contain countless sadness and bitterness. Although it is 2 words, it has extraordinary meaning. I said, no need. What are your plans for the future? Li Wei looked at Bucky, and Bucky raised his eyebrows, as if he had made some kind of decision. If your husband doesn't dislike my crippled body, I am willing to join S.H.I.E.L.D. From now on you will be my boss. Winter Soldier's answer was very straightforward. Definitely, this is what Li Wei hopes to see. After this guy recovered his sanity, he was indeed an extremely sane person. However, I have one more request. Bucky suddenly raised his head. Li Wei squinted his eyes, but quickly reacted, Captain America. Steve Rogers, do you want me to save him? Winter Soldier's originally indifferent face suddenly became a little excited. Is he still alive? Well, alive, and, I know he is there. What? Winter Soldier's pupils suddenly widened. Li Wei looked at Winter Soldier's eyes, and he saw a touch of long-lost excitement and popularity from the opponent's face. The previous Winter Soldier, like a robot with no emotions, did not seem to be angry at all. But now, when the name Captain America appeared, Winter Soldier seemed to be alive. After all, he and Captain America are not only dead brothers who have been playing since childhood, but also, decades ago, during World War II, when Captain America had not been injected with serum, whenever he was injured, Bucky always appeared in front of him. To protect him, even tell him, I will always protect you. Later Captain America injected super serum and became a superhero. As the powerful Captain of the United States, he began to protect his good brother Bucky. In Captain America 2, Winter Soldier became the agent of Hydra. After being brainwashed, he did a damaging thing and brought back the memory of Winter Soldier's past. This is also the sentence I will always protect you forever. This is a pair of brothers who can be handed to each other's back. Li Wei definitely understands the emotions between 2 people, so he will know that what Winter Soldier wants to request must be this. Where is he now? With a hoarse voice, Winter Soldier rushed to Li Wei's body, with a pleading on his face. He squeezed Li Wei's arm tightly with both hands. His eyes are extremely blood red. It looks a bit biting. Sorry, I can't tell you now. Boom. Li Wei's arms shook, and Winter Soldier ejected out like flying. But I can assure you that he is not dead, he is fine, and I will definitely save him. Li Wei looked at Winter Soldier flying in the air, staring at him with a man's attitude. AIBC, Winter Soldier nodded in the air. Okay, I believe you. DA. Winter Soldier turned over and landed directly. Step on. However, his whole body was completely uncontrollable and took a few steps back, with a touch of horror on his face. The man in front of me is so strong. He was not the opponent's opponent at all, and the random shock of both arms just now almost didn't make him vomit blood directly. Winter Soldier can feel the superpower that's surging out. That's why he would believe Li Wei's words. Any other things? Li Wei said lightly. Winter Soldier shook his head. Nothing. Well, now there is a task for you. Li Wei didn't talk nonsense. He used the information about Ulysses Crow in the briefcase Nick gave him just now in front of Winter Soldier. Take this person, Ulysses Crow, with you. Come in front of me. Give you 3 days, can you do it? Li Wei's expression became serious. Some things he knows are very important to me. What? Winter Soldier didn't say a word, took the file bag and began to look through it. Nick has sent someone to stare at this guy, all you have to do is to bring him back here. With that, Li Wei pointed to Nick and Fury who were on the sidelines. When you act, ask Nick where he is now. Well, okay, I get it. Winter Soldier nodded. Guaranteed to complete the mission. Winter Soldier patted his chest, but he seemed to have thought of something, and his movements became a little sluggish. Wait a minute, boss, you say, you, who else besides me? And her, come in, Natasha Romanoff. Li Wei shouted at the door. Get to know you, after all, you will have a lot of opportunities for cooperation in the future. Winter Soldier turned his head and looked at the approaching Black Widow. A flash of intuition suddenly flashed through his heart. This woman is not easy. While Winter Soldier was observing Black Widow, Natasha Romanoff was also observing him. She nodded towards Bucky. Long time no see, Hydra agent. It's you. Bucky suddenly remembered that this woman had performed tasks with him. Are you the creator of the Red Room? Winter Soldier asked in disbelief. Natasha Romanoff nodded. However, now I am Mr. S person. It's him who got me out of the sea of suffering. Natasha Romanoff cast a grateful look at Li Wei. Li Wei smiled. Well, now is not the time to reminisce. You are on the plane, and some have time to communicate. Now, let's take a look at your mission this time. Boom. Just as Natasha Romanoff caught Ulysses' scraw, the door, there was a sudden violent roar. It was like something exploded. Li Wei frowned, and then he heard a very familiar scream. Our future, Comrade Iron Man, seems to be in trouble. Oh, my God, help, what is this? It hurts me to death. Fuck, she Stark yelled outside the door, but Li Wei laughed. He could already imagine what happened to she Stark. Boss, Winter Soldier and Natasha Romanoff looked at Li Wei at the same time. You go and do your business. Li Wei waved his hand, without paying attention to the farce outside the door, and signaled them to act immediately. Let's go, the task is important, I can handle the things here. Yes, Winter Soldier and Black Widow looked at each other, and then walked out the door one after another. They saw an extremely tragic scene. I knew it was this guy who caused trouble. Natasha Romanoff shrugged, and then walked out of Wayne Manor first. And Li Wei slowly walked towards the direction of the explosion and screams. That unstoppable scream, if Li Wei heard it correctly, it should be our great genius, Playboy Tony She Stark. Before taking a few steps, Li Wei saw She Stark. His face was black and blue. There is no ordinary dandy image, with a pair of coxcomb head, and a piece of shell bag sunglasses was knocked off and hung on it. In the ear, he ran towards him with a piss. While running, he was still desperately crying for help. God, who will save me? She Stark called roar out loudly, and suddenly, he didn't make a good step. Boom. The future Comrade Iron Man just ate shit and fell to the ground, but this guy deserves to be the future Iron Man. He did not give up running away and roared to save him, and he was still there constantly shouting, help. Who can save me? Who can save me? The moment he raised his head, he saw Li Wei, and then, his face glowed and became excited. He was like a drowning person seeing a life-saving straw, and desperately shouted at Li Wei, Mr. Li, help, help. Someone wants to kill me. To kill the artificial intelligence scientist you hired. Snapped. He crawled and quickly ran towards Li Wei, and then hid behind Li Wei, pulling his clothes, not letting go. Mr. Li, save me. Save me. She Stark screamed tremblingly there, obviously terrified. Li Wei had already seen a huge amount of red mang, bombarding him. This is a dark red energy, carrying the earth all over the sky, as well as some beverage bottles, stools and other items, sweeping towards myself. You kid, why is it okay to provoke her? Tired of life? Li Wei shook his head, looked at the menacing battle before him, and grabbed She Stark. Taste. The swift force was activated and disappeared in the blink of an eye. Asshole, get out of here. A delicate but clearly angered sound resounded over Wayne Manor. Then, in the place where Li Wei just disappeared, an extremely graceful figure appeared there. It was Scarlet Witch Wanda, who was looking around angrily. In his eyes, he seemed to be breathing fire. On both hands, there are two strong dark red origin magic power condensed. The red is constantly rising, looking full of destructive power. Just now Stark was scared to death by these two energies. How would he know that this beautiful young lady was so aggressive when she was so aggressive? Ah, Wanda. A white man's palm suddenly patted Wanda's shoulder. Wanda's whole body was agitated, and then her body turned abruptly, and her hand was lifted along the way, and she pressed it hard behind her. Boom. Hongmang directly bombed the surface, exploding a huge amount of deep pit. But Li Wei carried She Stark and flew into the air. Goo. Seeing the huge pothole on the ground that seemed to have been blown out by a bomb, Stark couldn't help but swallow. It's too fierce. If I suffer this, obviously my life will not be saved. How could I provoke such a woman? Has the study of artificial intelligence recently broken the brain research? Wanda, it's me. Li Wei hovered in the air, looking condescendingly at Scarlet Witch. Scarlet Witch suddenly raised his head, and the suffocation in his body only slightly reduced. Why are you here? 0. Ask for flowers. Ah, your movement is too loud. I'll take a look. Li Wei smiled, but then he pulled the scared She-Stark out from behind. Wanda, are you looking for him? Scarlet Witch's eyes became red again the moment he saw Stark. Yes, sir, it's him. You get out of the way and let me kill this bastard. With that said, Wanda is about to do it again. She-Stark was scared to pee at once, and hurriedly said to Li Wei, Mr. Li, help. You must save me. He was about to kneel directly with Li Wei, and he saw the hand of Scarlet Witch with his own eyes. 0. If you hid it by yourself, it will be gone in the next half of your life. So he kept begging to Li Wei. Looking at this poor baby, Li Wei really wanted to laugh. So you are Iron Man, you don't have any equipment, just say that. Sighing slightly, Li Wei looked at Scarlet Witch. Wanda, if you have something to say, he is the son of Mr. Howard. Seeing She-Stark's embarrassed look, to be honest, Li Wei really wanted to laugh. He really couldn't hold back. In the end, Li Wei carried She-Stark on his back, with a gloating look on his face. Although he looks very annoying, but just assassinated him, it was too much. Girl, it's better to be gentle. No, you ask him. Wanda gritted his teeth abruptly. Sir, this guy is too much. He is a bastard. He just wanted to make a plot against me. I must kill him. What? Li Wei can't stand it. The special Wanda is her own woman. Although I haven't started yet, it is already determined by default. Hey, what did your kid do to Wanda? Li Wei's face suddenly became ugly. This guy dared to be tempted by her, then Li Wei couldn't bear it anyway. Not even the future Iron Man. Stark must have done nothing to Scarlet Witch. Just look at it and you will know. Dang.